Welcome to Catholic Champion. This is your host, John Yep, and my co-host, Michael Hichborn. We are here today to talk about what rest of America is pretty much talking about, the whole immigration debate. And believe it or not, the Catholic Church is once again at the center with the Holy Father himself coming out with a letter yesterday morning. Stay tuned. My. President Donald Trump is in his second term in office. There's one defining thing that's just marked him from the time that he stepped down on the escalator now 10 years ago. It was that he was going to be a man that secured our border, right? This is Donald Trump 101. We've known it now for 10 years. And, as the American people in the ultimate verdict voted last November overwhelmingly, including 58 to 40% of Catholics, they chose him. And he was not trying to hide anything. He said it clearly up front, day one. Look, we are going to fix the damage. Yes, the damage done by the Biden administration over the past 4 years, allowing 18 million people or whatever it is through the country. We were going to fix that and send the criminals, these illegal, migrants back to their countries of origin. Okay. So we've known about this, and true to his word, as he's doing everything else, like he has said he would, it's happening, and it's received a lot of blowback. Okay. So Michael Hichborn is, again, one of the experts at this in terms of coming at this, the whole financial nuts and bolts of this, or why Catholic leaders would want to be involved with this or interested in this. And it's a great topic. It's super important. So, Michael, you saw the letter from the Holy Father. Got it printed off here. It's a 3-page letter sent to the bishops of the United States yesterday morning. Thoughts on the letter? What'd you think?
Well, the biggest takeaway for me from the letter was that it was a giant non sequitur. It didn't say anything. It really didn't establish anything. It was full of a lot of buzzwords, and it was full of a lot of loaded terms, but it didn't actually dictate any particular thought or policy with regard to immigration or anything. In fact, I want to read to you the first paragraph because I find it unintentionally funny. Let me explain. Here's what the opening paragraph says. The journey from slavery to freedom that the people of Israel traveled, as narrated in the book of Exodus, invites us to look at the reality of our time, so clearly marked by the phenomenon of migration, as a decisive moment in history to reaffirm not only our faith in a God who is always close, incarnate, migrant, and refugee, but also the infinite and transcendent dignity of every human person. Here's what's unintentionally funny. The migration of the people of Israel to the promised land was not a movement of migration. It was a movement of conquest. That's a huge problem for this letter, because he establishes the whole letter is built upon that premise that, well, you have migrating peoples all the time and The Israelites were taken out of Egypt to be given the promised land, which was under the control of the Carthaginians. Okay. That's who had control of the land. The Philistines, the Canaanites. Okay. Those were the people that,
were they returning their homeland, their ancestral homeland? I mean, they were not, it
was
right.
that wasn't. So the reason that was the promised land is because it's the land that flows with milk and honey, right? It's the fertile land. It's the land that God had intended to give to the Israelites. They didn't have it before that. Mm-hmm. This was not their land prior to that. So when he gave them the promised land, he said, I'm going to take you out of slavery and I'm going to give you this land. And they had massive cities with huge walls surrounding the cities. And the Israelites had to blast trumpets to cause those walls to crumble. Okay, this is a movement of conquest, not migration. It's not mere migration. And what did they do? They went in and they slaughtered everyone in these cities. They didn't leave anybody alive.
Mhm.
So this movement of conquest does not form a good foundation for a letter on migration. And that's exactly what he does. He establishes this as a letter of migration. And he talks about human dignity, but he doesn't want to talk about the conquest and the slaughter of the people in those cities with regard to that conquest. So it's a mess. The whole letter is a mess. I started reading various paragraphs trying to figure out what his point was.
Mhm.
I'll give you another example. So this is from paragraph 3. Likewise, Jesus Christ, loving everyone with a universal love, educates us in the permanent recognition of the dignity of every human being without exception. In fact, when we speak of infinite and transcendent dignity, we wish to emphasize that the most decisive value possessed by the human person surpasses and sustains every other juridical consideration that can be made to regulate life in society. Thus, all the Christian faithful and people of goodwill are called upon to consider the legitimacy of norms and public policies in the light of the dignity of the person and his or her fundamental rights, not vice versa. What in the heck does that even say? It makes no sense. It's a huge non sequitur. Okay, so you want to talk about human dignity? That's fine, but what relevance does any of this have? What's the therefore? But he makes no such statement throughout the entire letter. There is no therefore.
I think I agree with you on the non sequitur part of this, and it's hard to follow necessarily what the overall point is, but I mean, you get it. Paragraph 4. What about this line? This is key because this is kind of tossed back and forth right now in the debate, immigration debate. He says, I have followed closely the major crisis that has taken place in the United States with the initiation of a program of mass deportations. Okay, so this has really garnered the attention of the Holy Father, right? And then it says, the rightly formed conscience cannot fail to make a critical judgment and expresses disagreement with any measure that explicitly identifies, here we go, the illegal status of some migrants with criminality. Got that? So you're bad conscience if you basically equate the legal status of some migrants with criminality. Okay, so and that's the whole point, which whether it's Holy Father or bishops or even with CBS woman who interviewed J.D. Vance was trying to make the whole point that if you cross into the country illegally, you are not a criminal. Okay, it's a separation of, in other words, if you break a law, are you a criminal? I mean, that's just a key point for them because they want to try and say, look, it's okay to break the laws. That's it, right? I mean, it's a key distinction.
Sure. And to be clear, there are places in the world that if you violate the immigration laws, that by trying to transgress into a territory without proper paperwork, and you do so at these various points that are very carefully guarded, you're going to get shot. I saw a video.
Places, by the way, you won't get shot, but it happens to be a country that's 117 acres big. It's the smallest country in the entire world. If you cross the border of that country, let me just tell you, you're in a legal status. You are considered a criminal.
Yes.
That country, ladies and gentlemen, and persons of other genders out there, is the Vatican. Okay? Yeah. As updated by their latest protocols back in December. Okay? So if you cross into the Vatican, they consider you an illegal migrant and you are a criminal. Okay? Yeah. How ironic.
Well, it's not just ironic, but it's, I read a letter like this and I go, how much did Pope Francis actually write? I mean, this reads like
Probably
something from Cardinal Fernandez,
Right. I mean, in fairness, most Holy Fathers today, as presidents, they don't write their own encyclicals, right? So,
and if somebody had written a letter on my behalf and put it on my desk to be signed, I would be sure to read it, and I would read it very carefully. I'm very careful what I put my name to. So I don't know. I mean, I know that Pope Francis is not well. I know that he is not only going through a whole bunch of different health problems. He's had bronchitis. So you question, how much did he actually write, and how cognizant of the meaning of the words was he when he signed off on this? Because
I mean, in all due respect, I can't. I mean,
agree. I agree. But what I'm saying is there's an irrationality to this letter that it surpasses any real meaningful dialogue. There's nothing here. It's an empty suit. There's no teeth.
It is, although it's not hard into it. I mean, that there was a reason for this, which is, I mean, and you kind of find this reason going into.
I'm a very, very German person, which means I take things very face value. I don't try to find some sort of abstraction to draw from anything, and I certainly don't like to draw from inferences. Right. I am looking for the bottom line. So mean what you say and say what you mean. But if you're going to pad your words with all sorts of buzz terms and political sensitivities without really drawing a conclusion or getting to a point, then all you're doing is dancing around with a bunch of words and you're not saying anything. That's the problem with these letters. This letter says nothing. It really doesn't. If you read through it line by line, and you just try and look for the therefore, or this is what I want you to do, or this is how you're supposed to approach things, there's no conclusion. There really isn't. There isn't even a conclusion with regard to that one, the paragraph 4. It just says, well, with paragraph 4, the rightly formed conscience cannot fail to make a critical judgment and express its disagreement with any measure that tacitly, explicitly identifies the illegal status of some migrants with criminality. Well, okay, so what? What are you trying to tell me then? Are you trying to tell me that I don't have critical judgment, or I'm lacking in critical judgment if I don't conclude what you just told me to conclude? What does that mean for me? Am I committing a sin? Am I somehow deficient in my approach to understanding human dignity, human respect? But what do we mean by those terms? What do we mean by human dignity and human respect and the identification of criminality? If a criminal commits a crime, do we no longer refer to him as a criminal? Where does this go? What is the point of this? Now, we can draw inferences and we can say, oh, I think what he's getting to is ... I'm not interested in that. I don't care what somebody is trying to draw out of me. I want you to tell me what it is you're trying to say and be very clear about it. Because if you don't have the time to say what needs to be done or express in very meaningful ways what I am to believe and what I am to do, then I don't have time to listen.
Yeah. How's this for an analogy? I mean, yes, you break the law, which makes you, it's an act of criminality, right? Your inherent good is still recognized by us, our fellow men, right? And depending on the level of criminality or level of degree, you're still good. We find this expression in Catholic tradition, the good thief, right? He's still a thief, right? We recognize that Christ recognizes his crime. He didn't try to say, oh, you shouldn't be on the cross next to me. No, you're getting what you deserve. But he recognized the good in them too. So, but okay, how about the punching back at, I mean, this is clear. Paragraph number 6. I mean, in some ways, in the history of the relationship of the United States and the Vatican, have we ever had, and I think it's been the eight popes since the founding of America, 1776. In those 7 or 8 popes that we've had, have you ever had this direct banter back and forth between the two heads of state, really on a purely temporal level? I don't think so, ever. And here's what I'm getting at. Everyone remembers the Vice President J.D. Vance, Catholic convert, who's just doing some excellent job at just articulating what we believe as Catholics and how it just syncs so well with what's going on right now in America and the Trump administration. And he referenced the Ordo Amoris, who kind of explained, like, okay, I'm called to love the person next to me first. I'm called to take care of the brother, my own family. And then, of course, doesn't mean I disregard beyond me, but I first, it's my own household. Take care of your house, right? Put your own oxygen mask on first, so to speak, before you help somebody else. Well, the Holy Father, paragraph 6, he says, look, the human person is a subject with dignity through the constitutive relationship with all, especially with the poorest, can gradually mature in identity and vocation. The true Ordo Amori. So it's a direct reference to the Vice President J.D. Vance. The true Ordo Amoris that must be promoted is that which we discover by meditating constantly on the parable of the Good Samaritan. That is by meditating on the love that builds a fraternity open to all without exceptions. What do you think, Mike, with this whole Ordo Amoris here and the Holy Father's read into it?
Again, I look at that and I go, what's your point? I mean, I don't understand what he's trying to say here.
Value of the letter of the law. Why is he saying that? I mean, I'm going to go.
Well, yep. So the order of love, which is what J.D. Vance was referencing, is exactly what you said it is. You take care of yourself, the people next to you, and so forth, your family, etc. So Pope Francis responds by saying, well, the true meaning of this is the parable of the Good Samaritan. Okay, so who did the Good Samaritan help? The person he encountered. That was it. The person who's right there. So what is he trying to say here that's not something that J.D. Vance already said? I don't understand what his point is. I can infer it. I can say, well, it looks like Pope Francis is contradicting him because it seems like he's trying to, but the actual words on paper don't do that at all. They don't do anything. They just say, well, this is the true meaning. And
Joseph and Mary, when they were on what's people refer to as their immigration to Egypt. Okay, let's go back to Bethlehem. They lived the Ordo Amoris out beautifully. Joseph saw, according to some mystics, he literally said, true or not, he saw the slaughter of the innocents on firsthand. Again, that's just from mystic. You don't have to believe it. But obviously they knew about it. They heard the cries of the babies being slaughtered. Well, what did he do? Did Joseph go and help those individuals out, trying to spare their lives? No, he fulfilled the Ordo Amoris. He took care of his own kid first. He took care of Jesus Christ. Okay? And that's all we're trying to say too. And that's what we're called to do, report to God. I mean, Joseph and Mary, I mean, they lived the perfect life. So this is it's a twist on words. And I mean, we've been very very charitable, honestly, just taking the Holy Father at face value, as you said, through your German roots, right? That's kind of like the letter of the law. But you can't help, I mean, just you step away, you really see why it doesn't add up. There's such a they're all over President Trump in the first few weeks of his administration. Meanwhile, 3 million, was it? How many millions were deported under President Obama? Crickets from the Holy Father. Okay. And then it's not hard to intuit that there's probably a monetary connection here, everybody. Right.
Right. Well, and that's really what it boils down to. I mean, the Vatican benefits from all of the money that comes into the coffers of the American episcopate.
Did benefit until USAID was crushed by Elon Musk, which was sending payments over to the Vatican, right? And so they got to be hurting there. And then obviously the USCCB just laid off 50 employees related to
the USCCB said that they laid off a bunch of people in their social justice office. And Catholic Relief Services is now talking about relieving 50% of their workforce because they're not getting USAID funding.
Michael, speaking of that, why am I going to church on Sunday and this is still coming out in the bulletins? Speaking of Catholic Relief Services, it is the Support the Catholic Relief Services collection. Reveal Christ's Love. How beautiful. National collection of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, done in 15,000 U.S. parishes. Haven't you done enough work exposing how these funds do not go to Catholic enterprises all the time, that it needs an audit and needs a cleanup? How can we still be having these little beautiful envelopes in all these bulletins across the country? I don't understand. Please explain, Michael.
because it's a USCCB collection, and every priest is beholden to the bishop, and every bishop makes himself beholden to the USCCB in the what do they call it? Collegiality. So these bishops, they circle the wagons and they say, no, we've all collectively decided that we're going to be taking up these collections. So I'm participating in this just as all my other brother bishops are. And you priests better step in line and also participate in this gravy train. But I did the math once with regard to the rice bowl collections. You know, those little rice bowls that Catholic Relief Services puts out?
Right.
And people drop in their pennies and their quarters, their loose change, whatever it is. And then they turn those into Catholic Relief Services to pay off whatever. Well, annually, about $8 or $9 million is collected for the Catholic Relief Services. No, it's less than that. It's like 7 or 8 million for Catholic Relief Services through the rice bowls. Do you realize that annually, about 2/3 of that would cover just the top 8 paid employees at CRS? Just 8 people. So the rice bowl collection.
So it's 8 million that's collected. That's what you're saying from the rice bowls. And that 8 million would.
About 2/3 of the 8 million.
2/3 would cover the top 8 employees.
Yep.
Of Catholic Relief Services. So I think you in one of your X posts you said that, to give you an example, the top employee of this whatever you want to call it program makes like $650,000, correct?
Very close to it, yeah.
Okay, so when this little envelope is in your pew and people give money to this, you're supporting the top 8. You know, most of the money is 2/3 of the money is going to their salaries, right? Nothing wrong with making money, but when you're working for a nonprofit, especially dealing with the poor, and you're bringing in $650K,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, well, it's not just Catholic Relief Services. I mean, Catholic Charities has all kinds of what would we call it? Filthy lucre for their CEOs. The CEO of Catholic Charities in Baltimore makes salary and benefits equaling $510,000. The CEO of Catholic Charities in New Hampshire, $336,785. You know, when you've got CEOs making north of $250,000 on average to help the poor, it's grotesque.
And again, that's not even the worst part of it. I mean, yes, nothing wrong with making money, and as long as it's moral, and we're called to be productive and transform the land and all that stuff. But it's like it raises eyebrows when it's for the poor, etc. There's more scrutiny, as there should be. But it's most importantly, it's the activities, which I mean, what CRS has done with those funds, which at times is totally not Catholic. That's correct, right? Whether it's abortion-related activities or promoting LGBT programs, correct?
Yeah.
So I mean, you want to read the reports, go to Lepanto Institute, you know, and bring this up to your pastor in a respectful way. Like, Father, you're doing a great job. I know you got so much on your plate. Just curious, why do we still have these? And they're going to respond, or your bishop say, well, what are you talking about? What's wrong? And then you can reference a report from the Lepanto Institute and put in the show notes. I mean, this is real. And Michael's brought it to the attention of bishops. They know what's going on. They look the other way. And this is just an example of how our money, and we're going to get into this too with Archbishop Wenski, the interview coming up with Raymond, how they're using our tax dollars or our donations with little oversight, and it's blowing up.
Yeah.
Should we go right to that Wenski interview? So in my co-host here, so Archbishop Wenski is of Miami, is he the head of the migration committee, or
yeah, I believe he is.
Whatever, I forget the exact title, but he's that, you know, the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops has different subcommittees. He's the head of, or at least on the committee for migrants, right? Which oversee different things. There's the pro-life committee and you name it, right? So Archbishop Wenski went on probably one of the premier Catholic shows in the country, you could say, world over, with Raymond Arroyo. And I think it's very important that we go through that, because it's in essence, it's really the bishop's spokesman on this whole issue as it's blowing up. So let's play that. Let's go right to that interview.
Force immigration law. We're going to protect the American people.
Archbishop Wenski, Cardinal Dolan called those comments by the vice president nasty and scurrilous. But isn't this a prudential judgment entrusted to duly elected authorities in this case?
Well, certainly they do have the prudential judgment to enforce, and it's their obligation to enforce the laws of the land. How they do it, or the spirit in which they do it, should be one that promotes the common good and does not necessarily create more harm than good in the process of implementing the laws. So, and I think the vice president was a bit off the mark when alleging that we've gotten $100 million to resettle illegal aliens. First of all,
Pause. Michael Hichborn, Archbishop, is making the accusation against the vice president that he is, quote, off the mark in saying that they have received $100 million for immigration purposes. Also, Cardinal Dolan, who just resigned in New York last week, has also said that basically that's malarkey, that the bishops don't receive millions of dollars. Comment on that.
So the USCCB, according to their financial reports, in 2022 to 2023, received $129 million for immigrant and refugee services.
$129 million. Okay, keep going.
That's a lot of money. And what Archbishop Wenski and Cardinal Dolan would have us believe is that $129 million went directly towards, providing, blankets and water and food and sheltering and that kind of thing for the poor. But that's not really the case. When you start diving down into what that money went to, you find that they were resettling these migrants by buying them plane tickets. They were giving them a $2,000 gift card. They were providing them with rent for housing. They were providing them with a car to drive around with. Those are just some bottom line things that they were supplying to the migrants themselves. But this doesn't even speak to the infrastructure that they were creating, because that $129 million didn't go to like the workers of the USCCB. There are no workers of the USCCB. They don't have their own workforce that they're putting on the front line down there at the border to help to process and to help to settle these people. No, they have subcontractors. And with these subcontracts, what they're doing is that they are now paying some other agency or entity money to do the work that was assigned to the USCCB. So it becomes this trickle-down pyramid. Now, what Archbishop Wenski is going to point out in this clip is that, well, we lost $5 million on that deal. Not really. Not really, you didn't. Because a lot of this money is circular. You're paying local entities, which is local parishes, local Catholic charities organizations, local diocesan workers, to go in and to do this work. And they are also part of the community of parishes and diocesan employees who are paying back into the diocese. And that money gets funneled back into the USCCB at some point. So no, it's not as simple as he's trying to make it out to be, because there is a lot of infrastructure involved and there are a whole lot of salaries being paid to do the work that he's claiming is being done. That means that there is an enrichment of the entire entity in aiding these people come across the border. It's not just a matter of money in, money out, which is what he's trying to say.
Let's pick it back up.
We participated since the end of World War II with the U.S. government in helping to resettle refugees. And refugees, by definition, are not illegal aliens. They're people that have been admitted to this country by the United States under the Refugee Act, and the U.S. government has contracted with the Catholics and also with Jewish organizations and other Protestant organizations to help resettle these people, because the government knows that when nonprofits, when faith-based organizations do this work, they do it much more efficiently and much more economically than the government. And again, it's not government money that we're receiving. It's our money, because the government doesn't have any money. It's taxpayer money, and we're taxpayers.
Time out. Pause. Okay, and in this 20-minute interview or so, that is one of the lines that just made me like, whoa. So, with all due respect, Archbishop, okay, you're trying to make the point that it's not the government money, it's our money. Archbishop, okay? It's our money. It's the ladies' money, okay? It's our tax money, okay? Yeah. So it brings to mind in 2022 when, the Arizona Catholic Bishops Conference came out and endorsed whatever proposition was, like 203 or 303, which basically said that the U.S. citizens should be paying for citizens of Arizona should be paying for the tuition of the illegal migrants. Okay, college tuition, whatever it is. Like, good grief. Okay, whether or not that's right or wrong for a moment, you're basically making a proposition about our money. We're the ones paying the taxes and working for this money. Okay, so right. So whose money is it? It's the ladies' money. Okay, and so don't we get a say about where we want this money? So if you want to call it that, can we speak up and say, Your Excellency, 58% of the Catholic population, if this is just a vote of people's money, like, why are you using it to disrupt the poor people in this country who came here legally, like in East Palestine, the towns of Ohio, Arizona, Phoenix, the poor, yes, Latino communities here, who now have this influx of cartels of people all destroying the thing, and you guys are helping them out. You're getting paid $3,800 a head or $2,500 a head for receiving these migrants, taking our money to basically disrupt our own communities. That's not your money, right?
No, it's not. And the idea that they are somehow entitled to this money is actually sickening to me. You're not entitled to this money. You're entitled to the money that we, the faithful, give in the pews when we are tithing and trying to aid in the operation and the function of the church. And when we give in the poor box, we give in the poor box because we want our pastors, we want our bishops to be able to do the charitable works of mercy for the church. But instead, people like Archbishop Wenski look at himself as a CEO of a corporation much more than as a shepherd. Right. A shepherd goes into the community and says, this is how we are going to aid the least among us. We're going to try and help this person. We're going to try and help that person. Let's get together and rebuild these houses because they were destroyed in this disaster. Let's get our hands dirty and do the hard work that needs to be done. And those of you that can't, well, if you can aid in our effort by giving a little bit of your excess, that will go a long way. That's how charity is supposed to work in the church, not by turning to a faceless bureaucracy that then takes the government or takes the public trust and puts it into the trough of a bunch of individuals who are going to feed from that for the next 30 years. That's not how it works.
Or how about this? Okay, so you're using our money, our taxpayer money. Would you at least agree to do this? You are a nonprofit. You're classified as a church. Every other nonprofit, Michael's nonprofit, my nonprofit, every other nonprofit in this country, every May 15th has to post exactly where their money went. We have this thing in the United States where if you are classified as a church, you do not have to post any details about where your nonprofit uses their money. Yep. Okay, how about we change this around to promote transparency? Because half the reason we don't even know where this money has gone. It's very hard to track. Okay, it could be potentially laundered around to other organizations. We don't really know. But why don't you just change that? Come out, start showing where that money is going. Our money that we worked hard for as American citizens. Do that, right? Or another thing. Well, maybe we should go back to the way it was early on in church history. What do I mean? St. Peter, he shows up to Rome. Okay. Did he have a church that the 12 apostles already owned off the bat? What institutions did he use? Some of the very first churches in Rome, I think it's St. Domitilla, right by St. Mary Major. That was at the house of a Roman senator, right? And it belonged to the laity. The actual physical institution of the church, the actual edifice, was property of the laity. Okay, they owned it. Peter came. The laity controlled it completely. That continued on, by the way, into medieval times. It was the laity owned and built the great cathedrals. Okay, and then the bishops would send priests to that, but the laity ultimately oversaw that. We've flip-flopped around in a huge way in the last 200-300 years or so, especially like in this country, where they have so much real estate that they own, and they have very little accountability, per the 990 reference I just said about 5 minutes ago. So thoughts on that, Michael?
Well, this is why we're seeing so many church closings. I mean, I made this point a little while ago. The bishops are crying about the fact that they're losing funds because they're no longer being given government money to resettle migrants and refugees. I want to point out the bishops received $30 million for unaccompanied minors, for the unaccompanied minors program. I don't want to be crass, but can we really trust a group of men who paid out $5 billion in settlement costs for sexual abuse of minors to then take $30 million of the public trust to engage with the settlement of unaccompanied minors? There are children showing up at the border with nothing more than an index card saying, here's a phone number to call. This is the person you're supposed to bring that child to. Are we supposed to then trust these same bishops that were shuffling around a bunch of abusive priests, and allow them to tell us that they've properly vetted and resettled these children? Where are they?
But Michael, that was 25 years ago with the scandals. They've changed that. The bishops are all different. Newsflash, no, they're not. Okay, McCarrick named about 20% of the episcopate in this country, and guess what? The current primate of Washington D.C., the bishop there, Cardinal McElroy, was, as he himself says, was named. He got to be where he is because of Theodore McCarrick. Okay, and he's also covered up. He covered up Rachel Mastro Giacomo and her old sexual abuse case. Okay, so you're right. You're dead on right. It doesn't make sense. Any of you people out there watching, any of you know someone that was abused by a Catholic priest, a clergy? I do. Okay, I've seen these people in I've talked to them, and I've had moments where no one else, it's just they're in a safe environment, and they share with the community and the group what happened to them, and seeing grown men and young ladies literally shake and start to cry as they recall events that happened to them 30 years ago at the hands of Catholic prelates. Okay, that'll make you think twice. These same people, as you just said, Michael, have received $30 million of American taxpayer money to oversee kids. My friend had a great idea. Our mutual friend, Jeff, said, hey, so there's 85,000 or 320,000 missing children here in this country. We should have an audit. If Catholic Charities has received these kids and helped them, let's see how many of those kids they know where they're at today, and how many kids that have passed through the hands of Catholic Charities in McAllen, Texas, or whatever other border Catholic Charities outpost, how many of the kids are missing? Okay. And after what number of missing kids, when they were filtering them in and getting $2,500 a head, did they stop? Did those people, those leaders, like the sister who runs in McAllen, Texas, at what point did they stop and say, holy mackerel, we're at kid number 250 that's missing. Maybe we shouldn't be doing this anymore. Maybe the people showing up to adopt these kids don't have the best intentions. Have you ever heard one of them say that? I don't think so.
No. In fact, you get a bunch of crickets, and basically the bishops continue to circle the wagon and say, well, no, we're doing good works. We're doing this and we're doing that. But again, you talk about auditing them and looking for full transparency. I've read their financial reports. Do you realize that their financial reports, they talk about money in and money out. They never really explain what the program is, how the program works, how many people they process, and how the process is conducted. They don't talk about who their employees are. How do we know that their employees have been through the proper procedures to ensure that these children are given to their family members instead of somebody else?
Mhm.
Do they really know much beyond the telephone number that's on the index card? I don't know. And I think the answer is neither do they.
Let's pick it up with Wenski's interview, Archbishop, that is.
Reports that Catholic NGOs were granted as much as $2.9 billion in migration-related funding over the past 4 years of the Biden administration. I mean, Catholic Charities of Houston alone reportedly received $500 million in those taxpayer funds, which goes to migrants for cars and rent and housing and food. Because so many of the dioceses have their own independent migration offices, the funds are difficult to track. My question is, can you see how the average American Catholic might be distressed at how the government and their funds are working with the church to prioritize illegal aliens over our own citizens?
Again, if the government has given this money to the various Catholic charities organizations, they're giving this money to carry out services on behalf of the government for people that the government has allowed into the country. These are not getaways that are the beneficiaries of this government, of this government
Pause.
money. Or this
Okay, pause. We basically have Archbishop trying to say, to make the point of like, look, we're just here. We're innocent. You know, it's kind of like they're just, the government's let these people in. We're just going to look the other way and just take them. And so it is what it is. Sorry. I mean, our job's not to get involved in politics. I mean, devil's advocate, or in Archbishop's defense, you could put that forward and say, look, I get it. There's different sides of the debate about how many people should be let in. We're not helping the getaways, the people that came here illegally. We're just helping the people that the government processed under the Biden administration at the southern border. And we're just helping them because what are we supposed to do? Jesus Christ, what would he do? He would be standing there and saying, I got to help them. Okay. What do you say to that?
I'm not even entirely sure what his point is here, other than that, well, you know, the government conducts this part of the process, and then we're just being paid to conduct another end of the process. Big deal. But the fact of the matter is, you're taking government money to enact a government process. How does this make you Catholic? How does this allow you to operate as the Catholic Church if you're just operating as an extension of the federal government? I don't see how this falls in line with the mission of the church, which is the salvation of souls.
You could say, I mean, his defense, you could say, like, look, it is because the church is supposed to help the poor that are in need. If you got to put, like, if you're in the shoes of someone, and like, I've been down there in McAllen, Texas, I've seen the Catholic charities where this happens. If you're running that show and you're helping out there, the government's just bringing you busloads and busloads and busloads of these people. What is the Catholic response? What are you supposed to do? Are you supposed to say, no, I can't help them out. They're hungry. I'm not going to give them food. I mean, they need to get from point A to point B. What do you do? What is the Catholic response?
To seeing busloads of people suddenly show up? Quite honestly,
should you help them out? If the government's saying, here's $1,000 or here's $2,500 for every person on this bus, there's 30 people. That's 30 times $2,500. Here's your check. Please take care of them. They need it. What are you supposed to do? Isn't it Catholic to take care of them?
So the government is paying me to enact a particular part of the program.
Right.
Well, the Catholic thing to do is if you're getting paid to do something, you fulfill the obligation of what you're getting paid to do. But I think the broader question is, should the Catholic Church have gotten involved to begin with? And the answer is no. Mm-hmm. This is not a Catholic issue. This is, if you're talking about a political process, if you're talking about the process with regard to the fulfillment of a government program, you're talking about government. You're not talking about the church. this does not aid in the mission of the church. In fact, the purpose of charity within the church, within the auspices of the church, is the salvation of souls. The Great Commission comes absolutely first. Why are you going into nations? To baptize them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, to draw all souls to Christ. That's the mission of the church.
But there's corporal works of mercy there too. You got to feed the hungry, clothe the,
I agree. But you know what? When our Lord took the multitude into the desert and he saw that they were hungry, he fed them. But what did he do while they were eating? He preached. The purpose of feeding them was to satisfy their bellies so that they would be receptive to what he was saying to their souls, to their hearts and minds. But this idea that you're going to feed bellies and starve souls is not only not Catholic, it's Antichrist. Mm-hmm. And to say, as long as you're receiving government funds, you're not allowed to, none of that God talk on Uncle Sam's dime, as a government document that I saw said. Well, effectively what you're saying is that the church is now neutered. The Catholic Church is not allowed to be Catholic, except in terms of its name and the function that it provides with government funds. That's not Catholic. That's destroying souls.
Or if I was in that position, if my day job was to run Catholic Charities of McAllen, Texas, love to see we have some great comments going on here. I'm watching this here from different people. It's a great debate because everyone's talking about this. If you're the head of Catholic Charities down in McAllen, Texas, what would you do? If this was me, I would probably, okay, let's just say Biden just stole the election. He gets installed, and you start getting these first busloads coming over. And you'd be like, okay, all right, I haven't had time to react. Okay, we got the funds, we got the money. Okay, maybe I'm going to feed them. Yes, I'm going to evangelize. To your point, Michael, we got to evangelize while we take care of their corporal needs. But when it's like on day 7, day 8, and it just goes week after month and then year after year and busloads after busloads. And meanwhile, stories are breaking out where, the Lincoln Rileys of our beautiful country are being murdered by these illegal immigrants that have probably come right through your hands. Okay. After like a month, I ought to see you on X and other social media platforms, like standing up, organizing rallies and saying, whoa, no more. This is what's happening is criminal. Okay. And first of all, I'm not buying it, by the way, that the only people that they're helping that show up to the ring are just those who have been processed. With the millions of getaways that have happened across the border, give me a break. They've probably been helping those people too. So I'm not. It's malarkey in my book. Let's pick it up with the interview.
Taxpayer money. These are people that have been paroled into the country, and with the understanding that they're going to apply for asylum, etc. Now, that the prior administration, policy perhaps encouraged people that would come across the country that did not have a bona fide case to make. That is another argument. But if the government has these people and they say, I need help, and they ask the church, can you help? We help.
Well, but Archbishop, look, I was down in Brownsville, Texas, and they have a huge Catholic Charities, a receiving center there. And these are people who just come across. I mean, I watched them at 3 a.m. I was embedded. I watched the folks being brought across by the cartels by the hundreds. They're put in buses and they're brought to Catholic Charities, who basically give them a manila folder and an airline ticket to go wherever they wanted in the United States. That seems to be facilitating, I would argue, the extension of the cartels and their actions rather than just doing refugee work. These are two separate things. And I think the funds have all been bundled together here.
In that case, your argument is not with the Catholic Charities that are trying to fulfill the corporal and spiritual works of mercy. Your argument is with the government and their failed policies, if you will, on the border. But once these people are here, you're going to leave them on a street corner to starve to death. That would be not according to what we hold as our commitment to serve those who we should recognize Jesus in their face.
Archbishop, the Catechism of the Catholic Church teaches, and I'm going to quote this, the more prosperous nations are obliged to the extent they are able to welcome the foreigner in search of the security and means of livelihood. Political authorities, for the sake of the common good for which they are responsible, may make the exercise of the right to immigrate subject to various juridical conditions, especially with regards to the immigrant's duties toward their country of adoption. And, you know, when you read that, doesn't the government have a right to regulate immigration, particularly when it comes to individuals who are known to be criminal dangers, Your Excellency, who are violating not only the immigration law, but have a criminal record?
Of course, and we have no argument with that at all. And, you know, that from the Catechism of the Church has a long history. Pius XII said in Ex Familias that, you know, people have a right, because they're human beings, they have a right to conditions worthy of human life. Everybody has a right to live in conditions of human life. But if a person cannot secure those conditions in the place where he is, in the country where he happens to be, where he was born, then he has the right to seek those conditions elsewhere. And the United States has been a welcoming country with the spirit of what is written in the Catechism over the centuries. We are a nation of immigrants. We have.
Let's pause right there. You know, there's been even going back to the letter to the Holy Father. They're referencing frequently here Pius XII's in Apostolic Constitution, I believe. Apostolic Constitution Ex Familia. Okay, written in 1952. 7 years after the Second World War, trying to make that real direct link to kind of like that. Look, it's just like World War II. No, it's not just like World War II. Okay, World War II, the continent was virtually destroyed, especially in Germany. Okay, and there were 11-12 million people that literally were homeless, that were just gone. Right, they had nowhere to go. Okay,
the entire city of Dresden was carpet bombed.
That's right.
If you look at what happened to Dresden, there was nothing standing. It was basically a grid of rubble. So the people that were leaving the city of Dresden with wheelbarrows of their personal effects that they could actually find, they needed a place to go. They needed to be housed. They needed to be clothed and fed. And that's part of what happened after World War II. This is not what's happening here at the border. Down at the southern border, what's happening is you're getting cartels who are turning to locals and they're saying, we want to send you across the border and we're going to make sure that you're a mule to carry our fentanyl with you. We want to make sure, you know, and we're going to hold the rest of your family hostage if you don't go along with our scheme.
Yep.
So what, by participating in that, what the bishops are doing is saying, well, you know what, this person who's coming across the border, they need our help. Well, you're not giving them help. You're allowing the cartel to hold the rest of the family hostage. And then you're also holding that individual hostage by perpetuating the cycle here. What's more, these bishops, they want to talk about, well, they're here for better economic opportunities. And guess what's happening? They're being abused by coming into this country without any documentation. So they're undocumented workers, right? What does that mean? That means that they're not guaranteed a minimum wage. They're not given minimum wage jobs. They're certainly not put on any kind of government system. So they're not being given a social security number of some sort to be in the system. They're being paid under the table and they're being paid slave wages. So the bishops are then also perpetuating the slave wage cycle of abuse of these people coming across the border. So it's not
creating on the other side of the border, in other words, too, right?
Precisely. Yes.
Open borders disrupts the communities back and home because the cartels know, let's destroy our local communities. Let's force these people out. Let's take people out. Let's push them. Let's destroy the local, whatever it is, to get them across. Like you said, carry the drugs across, use the girls, young ladies, sell them for money over and over and over. Right. So it's a joke. It's not a joke. It's disgusting.
Yeah, it's a sick joke, is what it is.
Let's pick it back up.
Millions of immigrants.
Archbishop, nobody's questioning that. We accept more immigrants than any other nation in the world, which is why it is a bit befuddling when you read comments from the bishops' conference, and I've gotten so many emails from Catholics this week saying, why are the bishops crying out for the human dignity of criminals? I mean, the Trump administration is deporting criminal aliens. Why is that such a bad thing?
And I don't think there's an argument about that right now. And we're just making sure that we do it with the proper dignity and within the color of law as well. And there's no argument about that. You mentioned earlier something about birthright citizenship and talking about how the United States has welcomed so many immigrants. One of the best things that we have in this country is birthright citizenship, because that is the one thing that helps to integrate people into this country very quickly, because we all have great stories about that first generation American that has made it because of the sacrifices of his parents that came to this country looking for greater opportunities for them. We want people, if they're in this country, to become Americans as quickly as possible and to become participants of this great nation.
Yeah, but there needs to be an orderly process, Archbishop, and I think that's what the attempt now is, to create an orderly process. You can't just have everybody running. All the people you mentioned came in, they got, like my father, he waited 8 years, he needed a sponsor, and then he served in the military. So he became an American through desire and then proved himself. But the nation doesn't have an obligation to throw open its doors to everybody and then welcome whatever children you have. The 14th Amendment, I mean, just for clarification, and correct me if I'm wrong, 14th Amendment was created because of the free slaves, and so that they could feel fully part of the American process and experience. That's what it was created for.
It took a long time before that happened, that the 14th Amendment, was honored in reality in this country. Mm-hmm. But the 14th Amendment talks about people that are, that if they're under the jurisdiction of the United States, they have birthright citizenship.
Archbishop Pope Francis spoke out on this issue of Trump's mass deportations.
Let's pause it for a second here. 19th. Okay. Without a doubt, everybody, I get it. This is a gigantic mess. Not every single person in this country, in fact, probably the majority of people that came here over the last 4 years, whatever that number is, 15 million people, they're not evil people. Okay, I get that. Right. They're good people. We're not denying that. I mean, but there are many ways. This is why it's such a scandal of its own way, because these guys who were facilitating this invasion knew the mess that it would be. They sat there. They didn't say anything for 4 years. They knew the disruption that this would cause. It's one. God gave us a brain too, and it's just does not to see that you're getting so much financial compensation to take all these people in, and you at the same time you are not criticizing President Joseph Biden in a positive way, who was a man who was he was persevering in manifest grave sin, through his support of abortion and other activities, and you didn't say anything. You let him receive the Holy Eucharist. You're silent about that. You're taking in the millions. And now the first few weeks of the Trump administration, you suddenly find your moral conscience on this issue. People are okay. We're screaming. Yeah, go ahead.
As I said on social media, it's really hard to hear the bishops when their arm is so, or when their hand is so deep in the government till.
Yes.
It's they're sitting there screaming about dignity and rights and everything else, but they're also screaming about the fact that they're losing funds. And if they're going to do both, the only thing people are going to hear is their scream about losing funds. And then they're going to see that what they're decrying with regard to the deportations or the immigration reform efforts or whatever it is, it's going to fall on deaf ears, because all we see is that you're upset that you're losing money. You're upset that you're no longer getting the government money that you thought you were entitled to, which Archbishop Wenski basically said that they're entitled to that money. So, no, I think that this is all about the money. It's not really about the human dignity. They're just using that as a beard to put on the face of what it is that they're trying to accomplish, which is getting more funds.
We got a lot of people watching on X and then YouTube and across our other social media. And if you're catching us for the first time, you may be wondering, why are just John Yip and Michael Hichborn at Catholics for Catholics just like wasting their day? And are they just complaining? Are they just angry? Or are they upset? Or what's going on? Like, or what's the solution, so to speak? Yes, we present solutions. Okay. That's what we have to do. And again, we're fully aware, and this is where we tread carefully too, that we're talking about, yes, successors of the apostles, and yes, the vicar of Christ. And we encourage all of our followers too, as well, all the people making comments. These are men that have been chosen by God to lead in some way. That's why it's all the more important that we pray for them. We pray, we're respectful of them, but we also don't back down from the truth. Okay. So what's our solution? Well, we just published a book. Okay. The book is called Charity for Sale. Written by Dr. Christopher Mannon. He's taught at some of our nation's top universities, University of Notre Dame, Christendom, Boston University. And then he was a Senate staffer on the Hill and saw many things over the years about, he worked especially Latin America during the Reagan administration. And Dr. Mannion, in a way that's done so well, he goes back to the origins of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, okay, to where it really started and how the founder, Cardinal Gibbons, was in the very beginning very much opposed to government grants, and how over time, especially around the year 1962, we interviewed him last week, Michael and I, so you can catch that last show. They flipped, right? They essentially over time, to the fast forward to 2025, have become absolutely reliant on government funding. With nearly 50% of their entire budget comes from U.S. taxpayer dollars. So as the book of Proverbs says so well, forgetting the exact quote, my mom sent it to me, that whoever you receive money to, you have kind of an obligation to. So it's a logical thing, and they become beholden to the government. So they're going to carry the government's water, whether you like it or not. And that's a reason why the clip from Michael Hichborn, where it got like almost 500,000 views, where you nailed it, Michael. He said that we haven't done a collection for pro-life ever in the history of the USCCB. Okay. It shifts the focus. So Charity for Sale, you can get the book available for pre-order now, endorsed by some heavy hitters, General Mike Flynn, Jack Posobiec, and others. Really lays out the case for what's happened, and then how are we going to free the church from the stranglehold to the service where they essentially are serving mammon. And it choked off their ability to really speak the truth when we need them to. We need our shepherds to stand up for the truth. Which unfortunately has suffered very much so in the last 50 years. So get the book, Charity for Sale, The Problem and the Solution, presented in an awesome way. So we get one more question from Archbishop Wenski as we're wrapping up at the top of the show. Let's go right to the end. Let's get like the last question if we can, and throw that out there that Raymond's asking him.
And I guess the big question is, we're talking about criminal aliens being removed from the country. Is that in any way incompatible with Catholic doctrine, Your Excellency?
Well, and I don't think Cardinal McElroy was speaking about criminal aliens. He was talking about a wider sense of deportation. And again, President Trump has, promised to get control of the border, and I think he's going to be successful in doing that. And I think policy-wise, that's a good thing, to get control of the border. But he also has promised us the greatest economy ever, that we're going to have the most prosperous economy we ever had. And that's a great promise. But if he's going to be able to keep that promise, he's going to have to make an accommodation on migration, because you're not going to have the best economy ever without immigrants, because immigrants are part of this economy. They're needed for the economy, and therefore get rid of the bad guys, the bad actors. Okay, if you have to get rid of them, get rid of them. Hopefully, we're not going to destabilize other countries because we've gotten rid of them. But after we got rid of those
pause. I got to
guys,
stop this. I'm sorry, Archbishop. Yeah, I'm calling your bluff there. Okay, you're trying to pull the whole thing about. It's kind of a dig at Trump. Okay, Trump knows this, by the way. Field of expertise is field of expertise. I think President Trump knows a little bit more about the economy than either you or I. Okay, I think he knows the fact that immigrants, yes, they help the country's economy. We get that. He gets that. Okay, he is one of the most successful businessmen in the entire world. Okay, but to try to cop out and say, look, if you want to have a strong economy, then you should just let all these 18 million people come across, and everything that's happened the past 4 years is wonderful. Whatever. Okay. You have disrupted local communities like in Ohio. It's just,
You're not reading the subtext. Okay. The subtext of that is that those migrants are coming across the border and they're aiding in the development of a stronger economy because they're working for less. Okay. That's the subtext. That's the quiet part that he didn't say out loud. And I mean, the sad thing is that he seems to acknowledge that, yes, these migrants, they come in and they aid in the economy, but how are they aiding in the economy? By helping to develop certain industries and to aid in certain industries without taking a very large paycheck. And I'm sorry, but that's a criminal approach to the economy. If you're going to sit there and say that it's a good and just thing for these people to come across the border and to participate in an economy that's not going to pay them a just wage, that's horrifying. And then if you're going to say, well, we want them to participate in the economy by then being paid in a proper and just manner, well, guess what you have to have? You have to have all the documentation, all the paperwork. You've got to have the process that goes with that. And that's something that he seems to want to bypass. So I don't know exactly what he thinks happens in an economy when it comes to people coming across the border. But if he's not looking to the proper way to pay a worker in that economy, and then saying that we have to have that process as well, I don't know. He doesn't seem to have a good grasp on economics at all, because he's looking at this from a totally different lens.
The influx in the communities has helped to contribute towards inflation. Okay, that's also another reality, right? So that's a separate conversation. Let's take one more question from Archbishop Wenski.
Of life, they're seeking the conditions worthy of human life, that as human beings they have a right to. It's their God-given right to live in conditions worthy of human life.
Your Excellency, isn't the government's first responsibility to American citizens and their safety under the law to make sure that these criminal offenders aren't coming into the United States, and frankly, that no one is breaking the law, including immigrants?
Nobody should break the law. Everyone should honor the law. But again, you have to remember the case of that Bishop Muriel in that novel of Victor Hugo, Les Miserables, where the protagonist was pursued by an inspector because he stole a loaf of bread, and the bishop was able to look over that failure and give him a chance at life, and that as Jesus said, the man was made.
Pause real quick. Are bishops trained in running out the clock with speaking gobbledygook? I mean, are they actually trained in this? Because my gosh, you're putting me to sleep with your stupid story. Get to the point.
It's well played though, because it can be confused. That's why it's very confusing. It's why it just he quotes the story, which is truly an emotional story of Les Miserables, and I get it. And it's trying to equate that with the fact that 18 million people have come into this country and have taken over communities like Aurora, Colorado, and killed Lincoln Riley's and a bunch of other people, and saying, look, we're just helping the people. No. Okay. And the casual mentions like, yeah, of course people shouldn't break the law. Look, you got to be speaking of more than that. Okay. Until we start seeing letters from the highest offices of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops saying this illegal immigration needs to stop. You are breaking the law. I mean, when they come out swinging when they need to, right? And it's been clear the flow of activities that are letters and the Holy Father, from the Holy See, from Archbishop Timothy Broglio, who we're trying to right away in support today of the Holy Father's letter. We got to stop there. We don't have enough time to continue on, but why are we talking about this? Half the reason, look, I'm not just trying to beat up on the bishops all day like we got nothing else to do, people. Because in the world that I swim in, the people that are around me, there's a lot of fallen away Catholics out there. Okay, there's a lot of or people that not Catholic, but they love the country. They're doing great work. They look at us, and they are so scandalized, rightfully so, about what we have done in the name of our sacred Catholic faith, that they don't give it a second look. It is a scandal. Christ is very clear. If you cause scandal among you should take a millstone around your neck. Okay. Right. So we are speaking up because we love the bishops. We love our Holy Father, but we love the people. I was at Mass today, actually, morning Mass. And there was a person who was one of the top 20 influencers in the country today. Okay. And what this individual has done, especially in the last election. And this person is not Catholic. Okay. We had a brief chat as they walked out the door. Okay. This is very, we welcomed them and said, it's great to see you here at church. But I know that this is one of the things that they see. And this is one of the reasons holding them back. It shouldn't be from joining the one true faith, but we got to do our part to remove the obstacles so that people can see the beauty of our faith. Last word, Michael.
I agree.
Nothing like
I'm unwell, so I'm having a hard time. My brain is starting to unwind.
Michael's been sick. I got sick. Like, this nasty bug has just invaded the country. This whatever the past month, people are getting, it's like a fever for like 7 days. I had it, and then my wife had it, and then Michael had it. Michael picked it up through the last I guess probably through Zoom. He picked it up that way, the virus. Who knows? But yeah, thanks for sticking this out. If you actually see the interview with Raymond Arroyo, Michael was on there, and he had like 103 fever that day. So pretty bang up job being able to hold your own on EWTN. So, but I'll give the last word. Last word is that big announcement coming from Catholics for Catholics. Okay. You are going to want to stay tuned. You remember that last year we had our Catholic prayer for Trump and Mar-a-Lago. It was March 19th. Okay. That was kind of our official kickoff where we did, it was our official endorsement. We prayed the entire Holy Rosary, the first ever public rosary at Mar-a-Lago. We did that with a number of Catholic celebrities, Jim Caviezel, Michael Knowles, Father Frank Pavone, and others. Well, guess what? We're doing it again. Okay. March 19th, Feast of St. Joseph. We are going to be, this is like our first announcement here. We're going to give the flyer up hopefully later today, announce some of the speakers, but it's going to be called Catholic Prayer for America, and tickets will go on sale. And it's going to be a tremendous moment to gather as a Catholic community at the home of the President of the United States in Mar-a-Lago. There are a limited amount of spaces. Last year we had a tremendous wait list, and we got some big names coming. Okay, some big people. Should I drop one of the names? I'll just drop one. Should I drop one name?
Go for it.
For the audience, Catholic Prayer for America. Dr. Taylor Marshall will be joining us. Okay, and there's some other big names. So how do you find out about this? Well, you got to join, sign up for our website. You get the first notifications about when this flyer comes out. You can also get our daily good news update, which has the articles of the day, as well as the daily readings for trads and Novus Ordo people alike. Okay, so Catholic Prayer for America, March 19th. Details coming soon. That's all we got time for. What a show today. Let's keep it up. Let's keep praying for our bishops. Pray for our Holy Father, Pope Francis, and pray for all the Catholic patriots out there trying to make America great again. God bless. This is Catholic Champion. We'll see you next week.